Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing. We are joined today by the one and only Alison McConnell, fresh from our Easter holidays. How's it going, Alison?
Not too bad, thanks. A bit more stressed than I was pre-holiday, but other than that, I'm absolutely fine.
First things first, remember everybody, we're running an offer just now. So if you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, I'll put a link in the comments, but it's also running at the bottom there. You'll get the first 2 months for just £1. One single golden nugget for 2 months. I don't think that's that bad. On top of that, also, pleased to tell you that if you are a new subscriber this month, you'll go into the hat to win £100 gift card as well. So extra incentive there to get yourself online. I'll put the subscription link in the comments for you. But okie doke, get to the business end, Alison, and that is exactly what it is. So the post-split fixtures. Final 5 games of the league season released yesterday evening, and they're interesting, aren't they? I mean, there's a lot of people expected the final Glasgow Derby of the season to maybe be the first game to avoid a potential title decider, but that's not the case. It's Sunday, May the 1st, and that means that there is a chance that Celtic can win the title against Rangers at Parkhead if the Ibrox side drop any points against Motherwell the week before and Celtic beat Ross County and Dingwall. Are you surprised at that, Alison? Excited?
I'm hugely surprised by it. I think that there's been all kind of contortions made in previous seasons to avoid this scenario, and you know why. You go back to that 1999 shame game and what it gave rise to. So I was really surprised. I thought the safest place for it from that perspective was probably the first game after the split. So I was surprised to see it, and obviously it adds another incentive for Celtic or for Rangers, whatever way you look at it, to kind of bank maximum points between then and now.
I'm going to put the fixtures up on the screen here for you, just in case you haven't seen them. What else sticks out for you, Alison? I mean, Hearts at home straight after the derby.
Yeah, it's a big game too. And I think as well, Tannadice away. I know Celtic played particularly well there the last couple of times that they've been up, but it can be fairly fraught. But you just do wonder. I think you're getting to the stage now where you're looking at it and thinking, where if everything goes as planned now, then where do Celtic win the league? What's the early states that they could conceivably go and win the title, which is an incredible position to be in. I think even when you look at where they were mid-December, just going into the Christmas break and the festive break, I think it's a remarkable predicament that they've found themselves in. I don't think anyone would have anticipated it at that stage. I think the hope would have been just to carry it on and keep on Rangers' coattails and maybe go and eclipse them and take the title. But I don't think anyone would have envisaged having a cushion of this magnitude at this point in the season.
I'm going to put up a comment here just because it kind of threw me there. Brian Walsh, surprised to see the Rangers game played first, that's fine. The season finishing on a Sunday is a curveball. May the 14th a Saturday, Brian. So I would check that again before you book any of your travel. I just double checked it there because it threw me a wee bit there when you said that. But May 14th a Saturday. Motherwell at home, obviously that day. That's obviously the last game of the season. It wouldn't necessarily be a title decider. That could have, as you said there, Alison, come before that. This is another one. Nearly D here. A potential banana skin prior to the derby. Do you agree with that? Ross County away, Dingwall. It almost was one earlier in the season.
I absolutely agree with it. And funnily enough, I think it was one of the venues this season that probably was quite definitive in the title. I think when the season ends and you take a look back at it, I think there are two big nights at Dingwall this season. I think the first one was Celtic's 97th minute goal. I think, how you take that out of the equation and Celtic were in a sticky wicket, if you like. And then similarly, I think go back to that Saturday afternoon at Dingwall, the 3-3 draw between Rangers and Ross County. And that was just leading up to that midweek derby at the beginning of February. And I think it knocked the wind out of Rangers entirely. It gave Celtic the opportunity to go and establish themselves at the top of the league. I think that ground, I think Dingwall really was important in shaping the destination of the title, and I would agree. I think that will be a difficult game. I think Malcolm Mackay's taken Ross County up into the top 6 again, a predicament you just wouldn't have seen going back a couple of months when they looked as though they'd have been scrapping it out for relegation. I think there'll also be a freedom there now in terms of they're safe, they're secure, they know where they are. I think it'll encourage a fairly open game, to be honest, and I think that they have players that can hurt Celtic, they have pace. What you would say just now about Celtic is that they're a different beast going to Dingwall in April than they were going up. I think that game was at a November or a December game.
December, that
night game when they were trailing, when they were confident in terms of the results coming, but their predicament was very different to what it is now. And you just wonder too if Celtic have a scent of the title on the horizon, and there is just very much a single focus on getting there.
That game, I mean, you're right, they are a different beast. That was, I mean, the injury crisis at the time, the unavailability, that was a game Owen Moffat had to play. Abada was through the middle. You had Liam Scales at left back. You had plenty of worries at that point, and obviously the dramatic nature of the way they won it almost makes you forget that was the situation for Celtic to get into it. Now I know the smaller teams in the league will also say, well, at least Celtic have got the big enough squad that there's still good players coming in. But at that point, as you well know, I would have made the case that it wasn't like for like, and the team just wasn't as strong. Now it's a different proposition. You call it a different beast. I'd agree with that. I think that's exactly what they are. Just one more on the opening kind of post-split fixture there. Patrick McLaughlin makes a great point here. Rangers actually play at noon that day, so they could be 3 points behind when Celtic kick off against Ross County and Dingwall. And it's all these wee things that make the kind of run in what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just adds another layer of pressure. I think you saw that at the weekend when Celtic had the opportunity, and I think you go to maximise that as best you can when it works for you. But I think what you've seen from Celtic in recent weeks is a very single-mindedness about the manner of performances. Yeah. I think you look at it and see it definitely has the potential to be a banana skin. However, I think you would expect Celtic to negotiate it just given the form that they're in.
Brian just came in and said he meant Saturday. That's all right. It was just in case you'd booked travel or something to come over on a Sunday and miss everything. Brian Roberts agreeing with you, Alison. It's an entirely different team. Yeah, I mean, it's all bananas will be left unpeeled. We're too good, Gerald Coyle says. Fair enough. On current evidence, it's hard to disagree, isn't it, Alison?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I just think when you look at the goals in Celtic just now, I think the immediate sense you get from them is a sense of confidence, a sense of assurance about games. They don't look like a nervous team at the minute. They don't look like a team that have any self-doubt. I think that's the first thing that's notable about them. Mm-hmm. I think that the second thing too is the depth that's in the squad at the minute when you look at the players that are there. And I also think one of the real factors for this run-in now was the re-emergence of Kyogo Furuhashi at the weekend. I think, if he's back for the last 6-7 games of the season, I think it gives Celtic a real boost. I think he brings something different entirely. I think he lifts the team. I think there was possibly an over-reliance on him in the opening half of the campaign, which was addressed then in the January transfer window. But I still think that he's a very welcome addition going into the last furlong, if you want to put it that way.
Kookaburra here saying, all going well, we should clinch the cinch on May 7th. That would be Hearts at home. I don't think anybody... That's probably most fans' second preference of when to clinch it, if they do clinch it, on the Celtic fixture list there. Obviously, with the derby the week before, for instance, if Celtic beat Ross County and Motherwell Rangers beat Motherwell, then even if Celtic win the derby, mathematically, technically, it's not sealed, although the goal difference would make it all but insurmountable. So Kookaburra's right. Hearts at home on May 7th is probably realistically the one that people are looking at. The other one that jumps out at me is Dundee United away midweek, because if it was to rumble on an extra week into that week, then that almost, that's like the 07-08 running was one of the most memorable and emotional, arguably ever, but certainly in my lifetime. I wrote a feature on it for the website just the other week. which is still up there if you want to go and read it. That one was sealed at Tannadice as well, albeit that was the last night of the season rather than a couple of weeks before it. But that jumped out at me straight away just for that reason, that it could almost be a parallel with that, and that's the kind of season that jumps out for me as one of the most dramatic. But the other thing to mention about these fixtures is that every one of them's been chosen for TV by Sky Sports, Alison. Is that just simply an indication that Sky don't want to miss whichever game seals the title?
I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly how you would look at it. To be honest, I just think I think for Celtic fans, it's just really an appreciation that the fact that there's a title. It looks very much like Celtic are champions elect, and I think that comes on the back of a very strong campaign. I think 33 games now unbeaten. I think it's the longest sequence of results in the league. I think just to
Brendan Rodgers anyway, aye.
No, it eclipses the Brendan Rodgers time. So I think just to place where Celtic are now to where they were maybe 9-10 months ago, where they were 12 months ago, I just think if and when Celtic win the league, I think it will be celebrated with a kind of gusto, just because of what happened last season and the chaos of that and the question marks that it gave rise to, and all of it that came after it, the Eddie Howe pursuit, the question marks over Ange Postecoglou when he first came in, the tentative start to the league campaign, losing the 3 games early on, going out of the Champions League qualifiers at the earliest stage possible. I think to have recovered a poise so quickly and to have found an assurance so quickly, and to see the team playing a brand of football that would be welcome, I think it will be a title that will be memorable for its own reasons.
Nah. Patrick, with a quick question. If Motherwell beat Rangers and we beat Ross County, we can clinch it via Rangers match. Yes, it is correct. Aye. That would be the case. I think is it not the case even if Rangers drop points rather than to get beat?
That's what I was going to say. I think
doesn't need to be a defeat at Motherwell.
I think a draw, given the I'm not sure. I would have to go and get my calculator out. I've not went and looked at it properly. I'm not sure if it would formally and mathematically clinch it, or if it would just be the fact that the goal difference is so strong that essentially it would be one in all but name. So I'd need to go and properly do my count and get my fingers and my thumbs out there. I've not had a chance to properly count it up, but like you, I had thought it was a draw would be sufficient.
I think it is, but then I was notoriously shocking at maths, so there's every chance I'm wrong.
You and I both.
That's why we use the written word instead of the maths, I suppose. But the other thing I was wanting to mention about Sky, just in general, I mean, as I say, they've taken up the option for every Celtic game, but without getting into the nitty-gritty of it, what have you made of Sky's kind of choices and coverage in general this season? Because the broadcasters come in for a lot of criticism, but at the end of the day, that broadcaster's the one that coughed up the money to show the games as well. Yeah,
I think there's a really strong argument that the league itself could market itself better, that you could have a more lucrative television deal. I hear the arguments that have been made about being at Scottish football being an afterthought for Sky, and I think what you would have to say is that their showpiece event is never going to be the Scottish League. It's not what sells subscriptions. And I think there's always been a sense that maybe BT handled it a bit better when they had the contract, or there seemed to be a more positive spin on it. I think basically what you want is a stronger commercial entity to sell the Scottish game and to bring in more money. That would be my argument. I think in terms of the platform itself, I think it needs to sell itself better. I think you have to look to do more to promote the game. But in terms of the coverage, I think it'll be welcome that all these games are being shown, and I think it's interesting that they're also showing so many home games when you think sometimes there's an argument that it's only really the away games that they tend to take. But I'm sure I think it'll be welcome for Celtic fans to have the games there. People that can't get to games, you would obviously like to maybe see some more of them.
David Gillespie with a fair comment there. I think a lot of fans like that idea, the kind of the league's own TV. That was something that was posited back in the SPL days. It was kind of ultimately turned down. It wasn't the route that the clubs wanted to go. I don't even know if there would be that much of an interest in it from the clubs in this sense now. But like I've mentioned before on here a few times, I quite like watching basketball and stuff now. What the NBA do over there is a league pass or a team pass. So you can pick like an individual team's games, like a season ticket for the, like similar to the Pass to Paradise thing that Celtic do just now, or a league pass where you get the full league's calendar of games, that kind of thing. But again, whether there would be an uptake and everything that it would take to actually put that in place is a different scenario entirely. But it does lead me quite nicely onto the next topic, which is I suppose off the field in the same way that TV cameras are. There was a report today, Alison, by Stephen McGowan of Mailsport that the SPFL is seeking sponsorship to help with the cost of implementing VAR in the second half of next season. Now, earlier in the season, we kind of spoke about it for a wee minute on this, on an episode of the briefing, and it was when the SFA head of referee operations, Crawford Allen, had said that his Category 1 refs had been training with VAR for about 18 months or so, and that an uptick in the number of cameras required to implement it would cost each club around $100,000 a year. Now, this Mailsport report says that the SPFL have told clubs the amount they contribute to it now will be based on their league position. So Celtic could be hit with a bill for about $200,000, and then that trickles all the way down to the clubs that finish 11th and 12th, where it would be about $67,000. First of all, Alison, what's your general thoughts on VAR? And secondly, the impact it would have on Scottish football were it to be implemented?
First thing is, I think it's welcome. I think I would definitely welcome anything that improves decision making. I know it's not without its criticisms, it's not without its problems, but I definitely think it should enhance getting to the right decision. I think you need a fairly common sense approach to it in terms of the interpretation, but I think overall it has to be a positive. In terms of its impact, I think it helps to improve the quality of decisions. It helps with results. And I think, to be honest, I think it's probably Celtic and Rangers who stand to benefit most from the package itself. That I think in terms of the decisions that shape a title, I think realistically in the league there are only ever going to be two winners. It's only ever really realistic going to be Celtic or Rangers who challenge for the title. And I think these are the games that tend to shape the title race or can be important in a close call. And I don't say that with any disregard to other teams in terms of chasing European football or picking up points or questionable decisions. But overall, I think it's a positive for Scottish football. And I think if you don't bring it in, I think you risk being left behind.
Is there an argument that it's an unnecessary cost for clubs in Scotland at this point in time in terms of if a sponsor isn't found, it might not be worthwhile financially for a lot of the clubs in the top flight? Is that something you can see the kind of case being put forward for if there's opposition to it? Or
yeah, I can see why there would be, and I can appreciate that argument. I think it's sensible to bring it in, and I think if the wealthier clubs can also afford to supplement it in a way, I do think that's fair enough too.
I mean, my own opinion on it is I don't mind it in theory. I think the technology is generally sound enough. I would imagine, and a couple of the comments are reflecting this, I would imagine most people's concern would be those those operating it. Refs in Scotland not being full-time. Connell, the comment I put a minute ago, he mentioned that refs in Scotland not being full-time is another consideration for me.
I would agree with that.
This might be a step towards addressing that though.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think full-time referees is an absolute no-brainer. I think it raises the quality considerably. I think when that's your focus, but then again it becomes very problematic too in terms of the finances behind it. And when you look at the fact that a lot of referees combine very top-class careers, very financially lucrative careers with their refereeing duties, I think I can see the problems that it raises, but I definitely think it's something that the league should be bringing into question and really looking at a long-term strategy that offers it.
I get what you're talking about there, about like there's some referees get really quite quite good jobs and off the pitch kind of thing. But it's almost for a new generation, I would argue, that the full-time thing is kind of the production line of the officials would be that is the career, that kind of thing. You've also got to think of like the parallels with footballers themselves as well. The lower down the leagues you go, that there are players who could be going full-time, but because they've got jobs out with, whether it's time or whether it's money, it's not worthwhile for them to go full-time. Ultimately, that might be a decision that some refs have to make if full-time becomes a thing in Scotland, that some of them, if they still want to do it, are going to just need to make their peace that they're not going to do the top category games if that's the what they've got going on out with the refereeing side of stuff. The other thing that kind of popped out to me in this, and I must say initially, actually, that there's another one-off cost that Stephen McGowan mentioned in his report of setting up VAR, and it's going to be like a VAR hub, like similar to the Stockley Park one down in the English Premier League. That's going to be about 400,000. That's going to be a one-off cost according to reports. So it's not cheap in the world of Scottish football at all. But in any case, this is my next point. The 42 senior sides will vote on the VAR proposals next week. And if it's passed and it all falls into place, then the aim is to start using it after the league breaks for the World Cup. But this is where I'm going to put up this comment. And it does kind of, I can see why it's that this is the voting procedure for the SPFL. But ultimately, the teams footing the bill and the teams that it's going to affect in the top flight aren't the only teams voting on it. So is that a kind of almost an oddity for you, Alison, and how does it sit?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I thought that too as soon as it was mentioned. Yeah, and I think it's a bit unfair in terms of there's a say there too. You know, like, and it can be quite a considerable sway. And I think you know what happens in Scottish football when there's a vote. You know, it can be fairly interesting. So I definitely take that point. I really do. But I think overall, I think VAR has to be seen as a positive. It has to be seen and regarded as something that enhances equality within the game. And how often do we talk about decisions after games? How often are we looking back at penalty calls, offside calls, red card decisions? I think it helps. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to eliminate all that entirely. But I think if there's technology there that can help you get to the right decision, then I think you use it. And I think that is of a benefit to everyone. And I think it's of a benefit to Scottish football as a whole.
I tend to agree with that logic. As Sean Curran mentioning, full-time refs should be addressed before VAR's brought in. I would argue that's probably a fair point, but it doesn't look as if that's going to be the case. I'll choose to look glass half full and think if VAR's getting implemented, the natural progression after that is full-time officials. And maybe end on the Nearly D's comment. Not having VAR is like not having an inside toilet these days. Fair enough.
I think there is a danger of looking as though you've been left behind.
Definitely, the perception as much as the reality. But I think that affects Scottish football quite a bit. And it also doesn't help that down the road, mega rich neighbours have not only got that, but everything else is compared to them unfairly, I would argue. But that doesn't help the perception either, I'm sure. Right, before that's well over 20 minutes now, but before we wrap up, I just want to remind you again that we're running that offer on the website. So if you subscribe to the website, you'll get the first 2 months for just £1. And also right now, if you're a new subscriber, you will go into the hat to win a £100 gift card as well. So I'll put the link in the comments for you. Get on there, subscribe. But anyway, for now, that's all we've got for you today. So thanks for your comments as always, guys, and thanks for your contribution, Alison. We'll catch you all again tomorrow.
Thank you.